I guess I'll start off by just picking up where you threw the alley-oop. Quentin Harrell, I've been here in Charlottesville for the last 24, 25 years. And I've been a serial entrepreneur here in Charlottesville for that time. So owned several businesses, owned a retail clothing store for about 14 years, owned a environmentally friendly dry cleaning service for a few years. And then I was blessed enough to meet my lovely wife who took my business acumen and my aspirations to an even higher level. We started a food truck and a catering company. And as of late, as Grant alluded to, I own a company called Heritage United Builders. And it's essentially a construction brokerage company until I decide to go ahead and get my general contracting license. But I actually act as a general contractor in many of the connections that I do with minority subs. I provide administrative support and that unpolished piece that a lot of small subcontractors don't have, in the administrative, the communications, the finance piece, to really try to enhance the bottom line for African American and minority subcontractors in this community, to create that value for the larger generals that are looking for more subs to execute on all the work that they're doing, but also in the residential realm where residential clients are just not getting some of the communication and the customer service that they would need and getting home jobs done. So that's me in a nutshell. My wife and I, we also do a real estate investment as well. Just trying to build up our own small personal portfolio because our goal, our mission, what drives us in our personal work, in our personal professional work, but also our nonprofit work, is wealth building and creating more wealth building opportunities for African Americans in particular, but the minority business community as a whole, which leads me to the work that I'm doing with the Minority Business Alliance. So,
Quentin, would you mind telling us her name?
Oh, my wife's name? Oh, everybody doesn't know my wife? Oh, man.
Wives don't know.
My wife's name is Yolanda Harrell. She's the CEO of New Hill Development Corporation, which is a local CDC that we co-founded about 3 years ago now. And she's just taken and ran with it and is really creating value in this community for African Americans in this community. The name is leaned towards and a nod towards the old Vinegar Hill neighborhood. And we're just trying to create a new economic engine that feeds the entire Charlottesville economic engine. We just see prosperity for all when we concentrate on expanding the prosperity of African Americans in this community.
Okay, so can you tell us about the Minority Business Alliance and what you set out to do last year, what you accomplished in this crazy time we're going through, and also like to hear what you see from your clientele and the Minority Business Alliance in terms of the kind of challenges they face. And then what we're looking for, of course, in the policy committee is, are there any areas where we need to, things that we could support in the chamber, government action or local action, other things that might be an important help to the community?
All right, Grant, well, that's a big one right there. Reel me in if I go off the rails, but I'll start from the beginning and take it a step back on the emergence of the Minorities Business Alliance. It started back in 2012, and the idea came out of the dialogue on race. I think that those were going on in 2011, 2012. And Uh, uh, the idea is to create an organization that that provided services and really catered to the African American community. It eventually, after it got established, it grew and expanded into addressing issues for the entire minority community, and went through a couple of iterations, name changes over the years. Went from the Minority Business Council to the Chamber Business Diversity Council, and then in 2019, when myself, Kay Monroe, and Alex Erpy came on as the new officers, we really took a deep look at what the original mission was and what it had uh, uh, morphed into over the years. And part of the mission wasn't aligned with what the organization was actually doing. It was set up to facilitate business startup, facilitate the growth of businesses, and to facilitate the sale of of, of businesses at our exit strategy. And we just looked at it and said, well, that's not exactly what the organization is doing, and it doesn't really have the capacity to provide that type of service. So we pulled back and revisioned the organization and really honed in on the mission. So the mission now is to convene, to support, and promote minority business professionals, leveraging local business and nonprofit partners to expand community wealth building. So we saw revisioning and realigning the mission with what the work that we could actually do as simplifying the process, but making it extra sharp and laser focused on what we can and what we can't do. And the undergirding fuel in that new mission statement was creating value for the membership. I believe Elizabeth and the Chamber Board, they're going through the same process of highlighting and developing more value proposition for our membership. And that's something that we truly honed in on and concentrated on doing. So that guided our work for 2020. And the strategy, or what I would say, goals, the strategy of developing increasing value for our membership and making the organization more relevant for an expanded amount of minorities in this community was to concentrate on 4 different avenues: professional development and training for our membership, dynamic educational sessions for our membership, of course, the tried and true, excuse me, the tried and true networking opportunities, but also couching that with resource connections, and then competitive funding opportunities. And so those 4 right there guided us on who we would partner with and the initiatives that we would work on. And so that led us into when the starting of the year, we brought in Toastmasters as one, as far as for professional development, because entrepreneurs need to understand the importance of speaking in front of crowds and clearly articulating their points and getting over the fear of speaking in front of people, because the more people that you can speak in front of, the greater you can build your leadership skills and actually expand your influence. And actually that will eventually go to the bottom line of your business. You can make more money when you actually can influence more people. So that's one of the things that we did. I don't want to go through the entire list because you gave me a really big question. And and it'll lead to the policy piece that connects to you all. We had some dynamic educational sessions where we were concentrating on providing information to entrepreneurs in regards to the resources out there in response to the pandemic. And so that took a very pertinent upfront piece on information, just getting information and bringing in experts and people that have been experiencing the ups and the downs, the do's and the don'ts of what you should be doing on seeking funding. That led us to a partnership with, well, actually didn't lead to a partnership with United Way because we were talking with them in 2019 about grant funding. So we did some grant making with the partnership with United Way, which was outstanding. We provided 2 grants for a couple of our MBA members in the early part of the year. Then us as a group, MBA, the executive team decided that, hey, let's look at, we're not going to do our luncheon this year, so let's take this as an opportunity to invest in our membership as well and providing value. And we created a couple, actually 4 small grants for MBA members as well, and then came back with another grant making process with United Way, and we actually provided 5 more grants to Minority Business Alliance members or new minority businesses who actually became Minority Business Alliance members from winning the grants from the United Way MBA process. So the last point before connecting to public policy, and what I think will be, has always been in my mind as a very critical point that the Public Policy Committee could really contribute to or put some mental energy around. The last piece was that we really wanted to promote financial education, the increase in financial education for entrepreneurs. We know that grant making and providing funding for entrepreneurs was critically important for 2020, with all the trials and the tribulations that were associated, that is and was associated with the coronavirus pandemic. But we recognize the importance of people understanding how to prepare yourself and your business for actually financial access and access to capital. And receiving grants is one thing, but having access to capital and really understanding how to create a plan and a budget and execute and to be able to pay back a loan, but actually grow your business and leverage that capital, that's an entirely different thing. So we really wanted to set the stage for making sure that people understand the language of finance as a business owner. So that means like understanding what your financial statements are. What's a balance sheet? What does that tell you? What's a profit and loss statement? What does that tell you? What is a cash flow statement? And what does that tell you about your business? Because we know that sometimes profitable businesses can actually go bankrupt as well. So we really wanted to really push this point and get the juices flowing in our entrepreneurs, the members, as well as the community as a whole, and then set the stage for connecting during those networking, then connecting people to resources, those resource connections that I alluded to as far as our avenue. So there's a lot of things that we did. I could share with you all the year-end review of the work that we did.
Yeah.
But the component that we didn't touch on that I think really connects to the public policy and what I see as a challenge, in addition to financial literacy for entrepreneurs, is healthcare. And healthcare for entrepreneurs is a critically vital component. And we're in a transition period. There's still a lot of uncertainty on what the federal administration is going to be and what their goals are going to be. But one of the biggest obstacles for An entrepreneur that has a great idea would love to take it to the next level and go all in with it, but can't because they need to keep their 9-to-5 job, which provides the health insurance for them. And so it keeps some people in the limbo, continuing to keep the job and actually growing their business.
So one of the things that hearing you reminds me of, you think about your own experience as you said serial entrepreneur, and that's certainly the case. But coming with that is what I would call maybe oversimplifying, but a can-do attitude. You know, you have a big dream. And so you say, okay, if I work hard enough, I can get the resources, I can get this done. And it's worked. And what are you seeing in the businesses with regard to that? I can say in general, in my work with a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, their dream is not big enough. They don't see all the possibilities for what they're trying to do.
That's a good insight, Grant, but it's only a portion. That it can be multifaceted. There's some people that talk themselves out of how great they can be and how large a business, large an opportunity that they have if they just put their head down and grind. But then on the other side of the spectrum, there's people that have a tendency to put their head down to the grind and leverage their work ethic. Excuse me, leverage their work ethic with that can-do attitude, which is super laudable, definitely necessary to be an entrepreneur. But it can actually work against you in terms of working on your business as opposed to working in a business. So sometimes if you don't have the proper plan in place and are able to let numbers speak to you, you can actually just create a new job where you're getting paid less in your business as opposed to working hard like that in a job. So it's just very important to find, and that's like what my work is all about in providing perspective to business owners. It's all about providing perspective. Perspective can change your life. Can it change the way you do things, where you can just make little tweaks. But the perspective is to create a business that can actually be a wealth building tool for your life, as opposed to just being a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what are you finding with respect to the other organizations in town who help businesses and entrepreneurs? To think back about, let's say, 20 years ago in Charlottesville, we were all struggling with sources of capital. How do we get an entrepreneurial environment here? And a lot of that has really progressed a lot in the past 20 years. And so it would do, I guess, to sort of get right at the nub of it, do our minority business people feel welcome in those environments?
And in the environments, I'm sorry, what
In
environments?
other words, if I'm an African-American entrepreneur, would I feel comfortable going to some of these other organizations that help entrepreneurs and getting the kind of support that I need? Do we need to kick down any doors, I guess is my question.
It's a yes and a no. It's a yes, absolutely, because there are organizations out here that are doing that have been doing some fantastic incremental work, but there's just so much more work that needs to be done. You have the chamber, you have CIC, you have even over at PVCC, Ridge and Frank and what they're doing over there, and then other organizations as well that the work that they're doing is starting to create value, but there still needs to be additional perspective, more uh, success stories that people can gain perspective on, or the success stories that are out there just need to be promoted more, because I could know Frank Squillace, and I can know Melvin Burris, who's a small business owner who's never ever plugged into the professional environment of the city and all the services. And so Melvin Burris, like I don't know them people, man. I ain't not trying to mess with them. But I can be the one that says, yeah, Frank Squatch, yeah, that's Frankie Baby, you know, and just taking off the edge of the professional realm, the institution that can seem very aloof from someone who really needs the perspective or the support that an organization or an institution can provide. It's all about relationships. Comes down to relationships, but then these organizations have to make sure that they are being very mindful of who they have as the facilitators of those relationships, and the perspectives that they have and the blind spots that they may have that go against the grain of what they're really trying to do.
I'd like to say something, Grant, before
Yeah.
you start, because I've had my hand up for a while.
Sorry, Lisa, I didn't see that.
That's okay. I want to come at this from a different perspective, and sort of as a devil's advocate. And Grant, you mentioned that sometimes an entrepreneur's dream isn't big enough, but throughout this whole conversation, since I've joined it, we have not acknowledged the fact that there are systematic restrictions that are not always geared to promote African Americans to participate as successful entrepreneurs. There is a system that oftentimes benefits and helps to promote those who've already come from privilege or have the privilege of having those already built relationships and experiences that others were locked out of or not afforded the same opportunities. So when you come up, and a lot of that was reflected in the COVID aid, that a lot of corporations that already had relationship with larger banks, and then the smaller businesses were not able to participate in those funds because they didn't have those relationships. And a lot of times they don't have those relationships because there are certain pre-qualifications that they don't meet, simply because they're a smaller business or the system doesn't benefit them. So I'd like to hear some of that, Quentin, because I know that even with your wife's nonprofit, you all are running into some issues because you don't have some experience, which is oftentimes a prerequisite for you getting grants. But sometimes the system is not geared to promote growth within other communities that have already entered the business as a disadvantage.
That is spot on and absolutely correct, and that's what drives our work as well. So we attack that with the same entrepreneurial can do tenaciousness that we need to, because race is that piece that's it goes back to the point where I was just saying to you, Grant, about the aloofness of the institution. That was that was the nice way of representing the historical discrimination
Yeah.
that is the perspective of the average African American, average minority business owner. And you can have this the mindset of not thinking big enough for a business. It's directly connected to that historical reference. If your only points of reference have been getting turned down, sorry, there's always an organized policy piece that says this is why you can't. After years and decades of no, you can't come here, you're just not allowed here, and then policy that was written to say, well, no, we would love to, but you can't because of this, that, and the other. So that's what drives me to push on the financial acumen piece, because if my financials are right, if I got a profitable business, if I can communicate confidently about my financial statements, then if you say no now, then I know how to approach or attack the issue again and take it to the next level. Because many people, like white people can get frustrated because minorities always throwing racism and like, oh my God, racism, and it's not racism. You know what I mean? So we have to strip away all those what are the actual clear vetting, professional managing risk barriers, so that we can call a spade when it's a spade, and if it's a diamond, it's a diamond.
Well, I think the other thing too, in terms of navigating the services, and I've got a couple of young 20-somethings that are starting a business, and they're trying to navigate their way through all the support structures, and you've got a choice of which organizations to work with and that sort of thing. But then also, whether the rules are set up to restrict people or not, there's still a way that you have to navigate through government and other restrictions. And I think having a mentor or somebody who can help in that is a big step. And then if there are people in that system who try to make it difficult for you, they can within the rule structure. So at one point you have to say, well, are the rules meant to be discriminatory? And the answer is perhaps, and we'd like to identify those and get rid of them. But at the same time, it's a lack of practice, knowledge, and to just work through the system.
Well,
Chime in, Lisa.
Absolutely not, Grant. I think the reverse is more likely. It is more likely that people of color, African Americans, come into contact with more racist systems than a lot of people may want to truly acknowledge. It is less about a person's qualification, because there is no greater testament to persistence and due diligence than a lot of African Americans, because that is a part of our nature. We've had to overcome so much, and to just drive it down to just a lack of knowledge is not giving it the true it's not giving it the true diligence that should be given to it. There are systems in place that are truly designed, and it may be a very uncomfortable systems in place that are truly designed not to promote my business and to restrict me from getting into being a competitor, because there are so many criteria that I will never meet because of your privilege. You've had the opportunity to participate way longer than I have. And then we're at a point where, okay, let's open it up to everybody, but you have a 90-yard advantage already. So we can't say that it's just about you not having a certain knowledge. There are systems in place that have not benefited me and have not wanted me to be in the certain spaces that you have always had access to. So I understand that education, financial knowledge is a part of the equation, but we also must acknowledge the systematic racist policies that are in place to hold a lot of people back. And once we can acknowledge that, we can truly move forward and look at policies that are more inclusive and not restrictive, coming in with historical preferences to offer preference or priority to people who walk in already with certain prerequisites that I may never have because you've had years of experience that was not allowed for me, such as serving on certain boards. You may walk in with that knowledge and I may not, and that might benefit my business. That might be a prerequisite for a certain business, or the fact that you've had the opportunity to be in business for 3 years and work with the city. And now I want to work with the city, but I am restricted because I don't have that experience, or I didn't have that financial relationship to gain certain connections. So I don't want us to oversimplify just to say that it's just about education. There are other factors that are being kind of diminished. And I think that to be kind of direct, Quentin, you're being overly nice. And you want to be to make sure that everything is status quo, but we can't change, we can't grow if we do not come to the table being truly honest as to the challenges and obstacles that we must remove in order for us to grow. And policy is where it starts, because once somebody disagrees with you, they can always point to a specific policy as to why they cannot do something. So policy is key. So I just want to make sure that we're being forthright, honest, and very direct in terms of what we truly need as African Americans in this community. Because ones who are at this meeting today, we're representing a lot of people who don't have the time or the financial security to come to these meetings. There are individuals who want to grow their business or start a business, but they're busy working so that they can support themselves. So I just want to make sure all voices are included in this conversation. That's all.
Lisa, I'm glad you brought that up. And Quentin, I also want to, thank you for all the work you've done this year. And a couple of things that strike me about the conversation is that, my big goal for this chamber is to have all of these groups and committees working in partnership. And I think, when Quentin mentioned that one of the big goals of the Minority Business Alliance is convening groups. And I know that group has done a fantastic job with that. And we've had, I think you all had the governor not too long ago, and Senator Warner, maybe. I might be mistaken about that, but I know some of the folks involved in that committee have met with them. At the same time, a different committee of the chamber was meeting with Senator Warner about other things. And it's really my goal that we kind of look at all of these issues from a holistic viewpoint and decide, as a business community, what do we stand for? What are we advocating for? We're going to have a new governor before long. We have a city election coming up soon. And I think this group has an opportunity to help drive conversation. I'm not partisan, and this organization would not endorse candidates, but I do think we have the opportunity to drive some much needed conversation as it relates to the business community. And so I think that's one reason why I'm really trying to find this intersection between all of our different committees. And I think the areas that Lisa pointed out and that Quentin also agreed on are certainly an intersection of interests. The other area that you brought up, Quentin, that I think is a great example is the insurance question and insurance for entrepreneurs. And I know you and I have talked about that in the past. And right now, there's been a movement for years that's gotten kind of nowhere about making, changing the state law to make insurance available through chambers to chamber members. I don't know if Neil, you recall any of that. It's gotten shot down year after year. And there's a lot of things that I don't necessarily agree with the Virginia Chamber about, but that's one where, you know, if the chamber could start offering one-off insurance and we become the group, then that price goes down for a lot of solopreneurs. That's the kind of public policy conversation that we could be having. And I think these conversations are really helpful to bring out some of those issues and concerns, because I do think we have other committees that would certainly rally to the cause if we could come up with a framework. You know, if we say for the next year, here are the discussions we're going to be having publicly, we want to present ourselves as a united group that's looking for change. That's kind of what I'm trying to get us to.
And I think that Lisa's points with regard to barriers to entry, especially within city contracts, is certainly something that the chamber could get engaged in so much as we're about the concept of business growth and home growth. And we of course have the swim programs and the others, but if you're eliminated from consideration because you don't have 36 months of operation, then I think it speaks to eliminating opportunities and perhaps cost effectiveness of local government. I'm not certain what benefit is served by requiring that 3 years other than a fly-by-night operation couldn't get through. But I think the more we can capture those tangible things for this committee to discuss, rather than what I think Quentin is doing, which is fantastic, building the education piece, the financial acumen, et cetera. Well, that does you no good if you are barred from walking through the door. So I think that if we can get a handle on what those specific objections are, what those obstacles are, how we can, then we can have a discussion of, okay, well, business for a year makes sense so that we don't have someone create an LLC and swipe through the government. But 3 years is ridiculous because then you lose the time when you could achieve some financial challenges where you've got someone who has the ability to do, let's use a bad example, but cleaning City Hall. You don't have the overhead of a larger organization where you have a 2-person shop that can do it cheaper. I think that cheaper matters in government, being efficient and effective matters in government, and buying local and supporting small and middle-sized businesses is a core function of the chamber. So I would encourage us to create such a list.
I have another great example along those same lines that I may be talking out of school, but there was another Harrell I was chatting with yesterday named Yolanda. But we were talking about how I've been trying over one of the most common questions I've had over the last 6 months is how many minority businesses have gone under due to COVID. And I can't seem to get that information. And the answer from the city and county, and it may be so, is that we're only going to find that out when, you know, the taxes come due and or the business license or whatever. We're going to find out later. But we don't know that now. And her pushback on that was, and others too, is, well, why can't we figure out a way to figure this out before they go out of business? And, you know, what are some things that the city and county or others might be able to do so that it doesn't get to that point. And I think that's another public policy question, really, is what, you know, I don't know the inner workings of the city and county in that way. And, you know, we don't want to be too intrusive, but on the other hand, if there are certain things that we can do to find out before, you know, disaster strikes, that would be helpful. So we're getting a lot of questions from other committees of the chamber that I think refer to public policy.
Yeah, there's one question I was going to ask Quentin is what data do we have relative to what other minority businesses we have? What are they doing? Who owns them? And I would guess that we have very few statistics in that area.
Yeah, we don't have any data, you know, and that's one of the travesties of our area, of our region. You would think that the economic development department for the city and the county will have data. One would come to town and think that the Chamber of Commerce would have that data, but that is just an indication of the lack of importance of minority business data in this area. And so we are at a time where that needs to be addressed immediately, because we use data to inform policy, right? So I'll say this also in response to S. Lisa Herndon. With me sharing what I'm sharing, it's unfortunate that you see it as me oversimplifying. Race and how this society treats African Americans and the systematic racism that's still there, it's a complicated issue. And there's a litany of items that I could take time to share on any given conversation, but I don't take that on as part of what I need to do unless the conversation is about that. My work and what drives me is about addressing and looking at ways to peel back and attack and get to the raw target and kill the target. And concentrating on being able to handle money, manage money, get money, have access to capital. I think that is a viably important, critical component for people that are in business now or who will ever want to get into business. Because when it comes down to business, and I look at racism is I've simplified it in my mind so that I don't become angry all the time like I used to as a young. Racism is about competition, and it was set and staged to determine who gets the resources and who doesn't. And it's just simply still the policies are still in place in order for that to happen. So what do I do? Do I continue throwing rocks at it, or do I address issues that help to mitigate all the excuses so that we can get to what the true risk mitigation is and how somebody perceives what risk is? Now, if somebody perceives me as a risk just because of the color of my skin, then that's not somebody I need to be dealing with anyway. That's not anyone I need to be seeking support from. So what drives me is what I believe in addressing systematic racism is building our own institutions. And we have to do that one step at a time. Not to say that the other work doesn't need to be done, and people need to be identifying every component of where racism and systematic racism exists. But I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a businessman, and hurdles are made to be scaled in my mindset. You know, I just look at it that way. If I just always thought about the bull crap that is of the system that we're operating in, I would check out of the system and be a criminal.
Yeah. Well, I think that, building on what Neil said a few minutes ago, I guess it boils down to those targets. How do we gather information that helps us identify elements that need to change?
Absolutely.
And so there needs to be some way of gathering that information, because I don't know how to go out and say to people, your attitude needs to change. I can do that individually, one by one, but that doesn't change the system. But if somebody, if I send these young people I work with to starting a business and they run into something downtown that is obviously discriminatory, or they don't know how to get through, I can pick up the phone, call somebody, maybe help them. But until that's identified, I can't deal with this sort of a generalization. And
I
so
got a question. I got a question for this group.
What can we attack?
I have a question for this group. Does anyone in this committee have an idea of what the framework is for economic power and how you develop it and how you attain it?
Well, for one thing, Quentin, let me just say this to make sure I'm clear on my perspective, is that you can come in with the best of attitudes, with the best of education, but if a system does not allow you in, I mean, you're not going to get in. You're just not going to get in. You can find other ways, but you're maybe limiting yourself to financial gain because that system is not available to you. So my focus is to truly look at policies, evaluate, and eliminate, because it is not simply about somebody continuing to pursue. We're at a time, a movement in time where it is not simply about me having the right education, me having the right attitude. There are policies that are truly against me succeeding, such as what I spoke of before with the city. In order to be a developer who is allowed to participate in certain funding, you have to be in business for 3 years. Is that truly a relevant prerequisite, or is that something to eliminate smaller entities, smaller companies? And what has been the historical fallout of that? So we need to have guidelines in place that are inclusive and not exclusive, and look at the historical context. Who has been able to benefit from certain policies and who are eliminated? And that's how I analyze it. And I think that should be the focus of this committee, looking at specific policies that restrict and eliminate, because there are very poignant hysterical discrimination within the city and Albemarle County, throughout the United States. But we're talking about right now what the chamber can do. And policy is very important. And I don't want that to be downplayed. And it's not about my attitude. It's not about my education. It is about opportunity and policies that are inclusive and not restrictive.
Well, I don't think that we're disagreeing. I think we're just speaking from two different avenues of the same struggle. So I don't want you to think that I heard you say the word downplaying. So from my perspective, it's not downplaying yours. But I just
didn't want you to feel that you were in an environment that you had to censor what you really needed to say. That's all. When I said that, I just wanted that to be clear. I wanted you to feel as though, hey, this is a safe place to say what you need to say, because you're speaking for individuals who are not showing up today. individuals who are at work hard and want to be entrepreneurs. So we got to speak for more than just us, more than for the ones who are in this room, who always have the opportunity to be in this room.
If I could just reflect back on both your comments and going back to Lisa's example about the 3-year thing, I think that's another opportunity for the broader chamber to take a role, because we have this developers group cadre. So we've got these developers frequently talking to the city. I doubt they've ever had that conversation. In fact, I mean, I'm not positive, but that's not in front of them. And what I think we can do here is, by having more of these intersections, it would be probably somewhat helpful to have cadre as a group be aware of, I mean, I'm sure they're aware of it, but come to the public policy committee and say, here's what we think about it, and let's get together as a chamber and help make these changes, so that it's not the Minority Business Alliance's job to get it done. It's all of our job to get it done. And so I think we only have a few minutes left here, but I think those very specific examples that have come up, those couple, are extremely helpful, I think, for us as a public policy committee, and certainly provide some cross-pollination opportunities, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really important question, because discussing these issues only within the Minority Business Alliance is not good enough. It's all of us have to work together to get progress. And so I guess one of the questions that lingers with me in just the 4 or 5 minutes we have is, what other discussions do we need to be able to get to the point where we say, here's an action plan, 1, 2, 3, 4. I sense we need more discussion.
I agree. And even more so, Grant, even with cadre, I say we need more inclusive voices, because if you look at cadre, where's the diversity within cadre? Who is going to speak up and have a broader perspective? And maybe cadre has never thought about this because they've never been affected by the 3-year requirement.
Right. That's why I think it's important to put them in. Yeah.
Well, and it is true that that cadre, I think, would welcome this conversation. And I think that there are times when we have to have what I consider uncomfortable conversations, because some of the members of cadre benefit from the exclusive policy. That is true. And it needs to be taken on head on. It does not need to be weasel worded around. The best organization at the best price should provide the services. I believe in a meritocracy, and I believe that's the way it should be reviewed. And I would look forward to having that conversation with the cadre group.
I think you have an opportunity for a series of discussions, because there's, race and discrimination is in every aspect of society. So the group could actually identify a list of items that fit under the chamber or the public policy committee's purview of items to attack, and then just make a conversation for those 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever you guys decide, those actions. And then in each discussion, and to Lisa's point, making sure that you have a diverse conversation, a diverse audience in that conversation. It provides that hard conversation that Neil alludes to, comes from talking about the realities, but a perspective conversation for the exchange of perspective. You may look at this situation, this rule, and say that this is part of risk mitigation. But here's what it looks like from my end. Here's what I experienced from it, from my end. And having conversations like that actually help to strip, like I said, I believe in that, in stripping away all the BS so you can get to the actual weed that needs to be rooted out in order to create a new policy. If you don't do that, then you can cut the little weeds around. That's what we've been doing in this community for many years, cutting little weeds around, but not digging down and getting down to the main root weed that might be running up under the house. You know what I mean?
Well, I think if in closing, if we could just agree to continue the conversation. I mean, I think we don't, on all sides, we don't know what we don't know. And I think it's super helpful for us to have these discussions so that we can all learn from each other. And I think I've got a couple of board members here in the group here as well. I think for us, it's helpful to continue to try to elevate these conversations to a broader plan for the chamber, and to continue to try to leverage all of the different committees in the ways that they can help us reach some of the common goals that we're setting out. So if we could all just sort of commit to continuing these conversations in a honest but healthy way, I think that would be great.
So I'd just like to say thank you to all of you for being here today and for helping us tackle some really important things here. And Elizabeth, just I'd be happy to volunteer for follow-on conversations, and because I think this is so important, and it's so important that we get everybody behind what we need to do here, and move to some real action plans.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to comment about next month's meeting, or another speaker on for next month?
So, and the speaker for next week is what, next month, Jeff Richardson?
Yep.
And
He'll be providing kind of a state of the county address by Zoom. So he'll provide an update about what the county's been doing, and I hope talk some about partnership opportunities for us to kind of work through some things together. So hopefully you all can.
I think it'd be a really interesting question now that we can derive from our conversation today is, what is the county doing to help promote participation by the minority community?
Mm-hmm. I can let him know that that's an area of interest that we'd like him to touch on for sure.
Okay. So hope y'all can come and bring your tough questions.
Yeah, I look forward to more discussion from this committee around collecting minority business data.
Yeah, thank you, Quentin. He actually spends a lot more time working on chamber business behind the scenes than he does out front, which is a lot. So I just want to express my extra thanks to Quentin for all you do on behalf of the business community. So thanks.
My pleasure. Glad to be here. Happy New Year to all of y'all.
Happy New Year to all. And Lisa, thanks for joining us from your car. And Melvin, thanks for joining us from San Francisco, sitting there in the fog. And all the rest of
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, and appreciate you coming today.
Take care.
Grant, before we leave,
Yeah.
can some of this information that we're talking about, policy and changes, be put into memorialized or notes taken so that they won't be lost, and we can use them again within the broader Chamber of Commerce, but also with speakers coming in, looking at what policies that we would like to attack, or what policies we feel that there's a need to make a change in.
Yeah, a really good question. I was thinking about that earlier today. I noticed Elizabeth has a recording button on for this session, and forgot to mention that to everybody, but we do have a recording of the sessions. We haven't formally developed a technique for minutes and observations, but need to think about that and see what we might do about it.
Okay. Maybe we can get her one of those converters, take the tape recorder and it'll convert it into written text.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Artificial intelligence robot.
Yes. I think it's, we lose a lot when we talk about these issues, and then we go away for another month or two, and we don't remember what we talked about the last time we got together,
Yeah.
or most of us don't.
That is one of the benefits of Zoom is most meetings now, I go back and look at the previous meeting, like before our board meetings, and it is very helpful in having that piece there. So let me know if anyone.
Our meetings are online, right? We have them in the chamber website, I think.
We do. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time.
Elizabeth, but I'm from the old school still. Can we think about getting those on written paper so we can have those on written paper?
Sure. Sure.
You know, there's converters, taking tape recorders and convert them into written
Yeah.
Yep.
data
I'll
that we
certainly
can
look into that.
utilize. And then we can, okay, all right.
All
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. Thank you,
Thank you.
Quick Q. We really enjoyed it. Grant, you did a great job, and Lisa also, and Neil.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.